Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Inside the OC, the podcast dedicated entirely to the USBC Open Championships. My name is Matt Cannizzaro, and looking forward to another great episode today here on Bold TV. Now I'd like to bring in my host for this afternoon, Daniel Farish. How are you today, sir?
Doing well, Matt. The weather here in Kentucky is much better than it was on Tuesday. So a little warmer out. We're enjoying it when we get outside, but we're inside today for today's podcast.
All right. Well, today's special guest about that for the first time here on our live broadcast, at least. We'll have two guests to chat with today. Some great stories coming from a terrific family from the Cincinnati area. We've got Steve Fehr and his son, Jeff Fehr, and we'll bring them in right now. Gentlemen, Jeff, how are things there in Cincinnati?
Going well. It is bright and sunny. The kids are outside playing, so things are going well.
All right. Steve, how are you today, sir?
Can you hear, Dad?
Steve's video may be frozen. We're going to drop him down for just a second.
Okay.
All right. Well, we'll chat with Jeff here for a minute and let Steve make his way back in. We're looking forward to this one. We got a few generations of stories here going back to even before we existed on this earth. Jeff, we're pretty close to the same age that we pulled in college about the same time, and your dad's legacy at the OC at least going back to 1978. So just right about that time. But it's probably been pretty special being able to grow up around a USBC Hall of Famer, two USBC Hall of Famers, your mom Nancy as well. Some pretty big bowling shoes to fill. Maybe talk a little bit about that and kind of what it's been like, and then we'll talk about what things are like current days with everything going on in the world.
Yeah, appreciate it, Matt. It's incredible being able to grow up with Steve and Nancy as my parents. They've always gone out to the national tournament, and whether that be the women's or WIBC back in the ABC days and now the USBC, I always remember them making this big trip every year. And when I was younger, I didn't really understand what it was all about. But as the years progressed and some of the wins and the coverage that they both got from those championships, I started to realize just how big this WIBC and ABC tournament was. And you're going out each year, you get one shot, 9 games to put your best foot forward, and they both have multiple championships, which is just incredible. And that's something that I am striving to get to, and this will be my 24th year, I believe, this year. So I can't believe that it's that many. I don't feel that old, but 24 years is a long time.
All right. Well, you mentioned 25 being a big goal for you. Right now, 24, I don't want to say it's in jeopardy, but the event now pushed back to September. Have you guys talked about when you're going to be able to make it out there if you have it all situated, especially again now with not being able to be out there bowling right now?
We did, and we were going to be originally bowling Memorial Day weekend, so it was coming up, and this would be the time that we were really gearing up with our teammates, and text messages would be fast and furious, and some team practice sessions going on. But now we have decided that we are going to bowl mid-November, so November 14th, 15th, which is my dad's birthday, the 14th. So that would be awful special to pop a big team event the day of his birthday.
All right. Well, before we talk about 2020 and beyond, again, you're right now working from home. You're able to do that. We'll certainly have a chance to talk a lot about your personal bowling career, as well as kind of the direction you've gone. But what are things like right now for you and the family? You mentioned the kids are outside playing, so it's got to be nice to have that extra quality time, perhaps. But how are things in Jeff's professional world?
So I appreciate you asking, and they are going well. So I'm lucky enough to work for a company called Gartner, and I work from home working with clients in the Air Force. So in the grand scheme of things, COVID hasn't affected me being able to work personally, which I'm grateful for. I know I'm one of the lucky ones, and there's so many people that this has affected. I feel for those, but we definitely are one of the lucky families where we've been able to kind of continue doing what we were doing. Now that doesn't mean that things haven't been disrupted. The kids have been homeschooling for almost 2 months now, and they're going to finish out next week with that. So they're ready for summer to officially start. My wife has really picked up the slack for everything, allowing me to work. And Patty has become that teacher, along with doing the things that she normally does in her day-to-day life with her online business that she has. And she's getting a real estate license as well. So she's been extremely busy with everything. But yeah, overall, personally, things are going very well. Our family has stayed healthy. We've been able to stay away from the coronavirus, and we've been continuing to social distance.
All right, all that sounds great, and great to hear things are going well, and you guys are thriving a little bit. I'm sure you miss bowling a little bit. How much do you get to bowl with the career and the family? And we know you've had some great wins and successes over the years, and we'll get to some of that. But generally, how much do you get to bowl? How much do you miss it? And what have you been doing to kind of stay ready and sharp?
I miss it immensely right now. So I believe the last night that we had in league was the second week in March, just before the bubble kind of burst, if you will. And I haven't thrown a ball since. So I have not had access to a center. In fact, I was talking to Brian Himmler last night, and he has a shop in a bowling center as well. And he was talking about oil and apparel lanes and us getting together for a 20-game match or something. We're both missing it a lot. So I can't wait to get back on the lanes as soon as we can. In regards to how much do I bowl, not as much as I'd like to anymore. With Patty and Addie and AJ, that has certainly changed things, changed my perspective. So I bowl one league a week and then try to hit as many tournaments as I can. But there's not too many practice sessions other than gearing up for maybe one of the larger tournaments that I'm going to hit. But it's really just that league and bowling myself into form in some of the smaller tournaments, gearing up for the larger ones.
Okay, well, again, definitely some excitement there generated by the Fehr family over the years, and some big goals. We're still working on getting Steve back to join us. He's again the USBC Hall of Famer, a 6-time titleist on the championships lanes. That includes a Masters title back in 1994. That you were around for in a way that you would remember. Again, his first title came in 1978. And then a few successful years there, and the longevity, of course, him again able to win in 2006 and 2007. So you've been a part of a lot of it. You've seen a lot of it. Any special moments, anything in particular, especially from that 94 Masters win, just being a youngster at the time and getting to see that happen?
Yeah, so I was 13 at the time, and I still remember Mobile, Alabama. And we were not there. So we were in school at the time. And I will always remember getting the call afterwards, because the show was not live that year. So it was tape delayed, and we were waiting. It was late at night, I believe, and we were waiting for him to call us. My mom and sister and I were sitting there on pins and needles waiting for that call to see how he did. And I'll never forget, my mom put the phone on speaker, and he said, "Would it be okay if I didn't win?" And we all said, "Yeah, Dad, we're gonna love you no matter what happened." And he said, "Well, you don't have to worry about it, because I did." And we were screaming and jumping around. It was incredible. I wish we were able to be there, but man, I will never forget that phone call in 1994.
That's awesome. Who knew Steve was such a jokester? How about that?
Yeah,
Comedian.
he is. He's not known to be a big jokester, but wow, he got us there. So that is very memorable.
All right. Well, speaking of memorable, again, the success he's had with his 6 wins, and going back to 06 and 07, and your OC career started shortly after that Masters win. Again, as you mentioned, this will be year number 24 coming up. But what a phenomenal group of players you guys surround yourselves with. Not just his winning team those 2 years, but your group and your teams over the years. Some interchangeable parts and some players moving around and doing some things. And some great success for you and your teammates as well. But I guess first, just talk about the group and some of the players and then how it worked out. I'm sure PBA cards and titles and things had to do with how those teams were made up. But just tell us about the Cincinnati crew and some of the success and memories.
Yeah, so I bowled on tour in 02 to 04, and that's right around the time when my dad got in with the last group of the two championship title run in 06 and 07 with Ken Abner and Ken Jesse, John Murph, George Gohagen. I want to say that they got together in the early 2000s, if I'm remembering correctly. But man, it was incredible the 2-year run that they had in 06 and 07, and I was on the cross team both of those years, and that made it so special seeing them take the lead in team event in 06, and then eventually winning and coming back the next year. I believe it was Corpus Christi in 07, and they had a solid team event to defend. I don't know where they maybe ended top 10 or 20, and then they just poured it on in singles. I believe Ken Jesse had 790 that year, and I can't remember how much they took the lead by, but that 07 back-to-back years to win an Eagle was just incredible to have a front row seat and witness those wins. So yeah, that contingent was fun to watch.
Okay, and for those just tuning in, we're jumping around a little bit here with the Jeff Fehr. We're trying to get situated with his dad, Steve Fehr, to get him on to talk about a great career as well. Right now, we just touched base on the back-to-back wins, the last 2 wins for Steve and his teammates. 2006 was the regular team title in Corpus Christi, Texas. I believe the score was 34-96, and I remember kind of seeing that unfold. And what a number that was for sure. And they came back the next year, as Jeff described. They made a run at team event again. And no team in tournament history has won back-to-back team titles. They had the lead and were able to stay composed. And that's something I hope to hear from Steve about and maybe his role in keeping everybody focused to come back the next day and make a run at 10,000 for team all events. Did not hold on for the team title. Ended up finishing 3rd. But team all events, that's the big one. That's 45 games, all events totals for the 5 guys added together. That's pretty impressive. 10,000 in a year is pretty special. But to come off of a win and follow it up with another victory, as Jeff described, being on the companion team. Now I imagine growing up, it's a dream for you to have the opportunity to not only bowl with your dad, but to win with him at some point. But sounds like the whole group, the whole team, a big family. And maybe a little disappointment not being able to be on the team, but being part of the companion team and being able to contribute and help and communicate probably was extremely special as well.
It was, Matt, and just being in that atmosphere, and we really did go look at it like it's 10 guys helping each other out, and in singles and doubles, there's 6 of us So that's the way we look at it. And I did get to bowl doubles with my dad in that team all events year. So Ken bowled with John Murph, and Ken Jesse bowl with George Gohagen, and I bowl with my dad. And those were special years to get to compete with him, and we had a couple of solid doubles performances. So those are special memories that I will never forget. I still remember in Reno. I can't remember which Reno year it was, but my dad, since I started competing, he's always wanted me to be able to win a title as well, and join him and my mom. And remember the conversation of him coming to the group and saying, "Guys, listen, I'm getting up there in age. I want you guys to have the best group and be able to put your best foot forward and have 5 great bowlers in their primes to be able to take you to the next level." And for him to step down when he still had some good years left in him, but he knew that there were some other younger pieces that we could put together to keep the group moving forward and have runs at titles. It was bittersweet, but I just, knowing that he wants the best for us, it was incredible for him to step down, knowing that he still had some good years left in him, and he's still competing at a very high level at 65.
Now, personally, you've had some close calls at the OC over the years. Traditionally, your group, your team, top 75, top 100 team easy. And for you individually, pretty similar. You guys got close in doubles in 2013. You and Ken Abner. He'd been there, of course, before, and he's a solid tour player as well. And I think that was the closest. Talk about that year and that performance, and to see it and feel it, have it within reach, and then just to come up a little bit short, 26 pins short, I think was the number.
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, I believe we.
And looking back, it was actually 2012 in Baton Rouge. So it was Matt McNeil and Chuck Vishaw who won that event 1489. You guys had 1462.
Yeah, I remember that vividly as well. We had a real chance to take the lead, and I remember following that year. I believe that was the last year that it wasn't fresh oil for every event, and we followed Glenn Allison and his group, and we got to watch them compete, and then we hit the lanes right after that, and we got out to a really strong start, and with 3 frames left, we still had wood left to get around Matt and Chuck, and I did end up striking out for 280. I think I had 750s, and Ken left a couple of 2 pins on the left lane in the 8th and 10th frames, but we definitely had a real pop at taking the lead, and I still have that watch on display that we got for 3rd place in the trophy case, and we look forward to getting that title hopefully maybe this year. So Ken and I are still bowling together.
Oh, now Aaron Smith has chimed in from the home office and said that he actually was on that doubles and singles squad in 2012. He also was part of one of Jeff Riggle's runs at the National Bowling Stadium. So I think that the goal is to find out when Aaron Smith is bowling and get on that squad, and at least they'll give you a shot at a watch, or if not an eagle.
You know what? I love talking to Aaron after we get done with bowling. So that's always a good thing when you get to talk with Aaron and you get your picture taken. But yeah, we've had a couple of other solid finishes. I know when the scores were pretty high in Reno, we had a top 10 in team, and we shot 3,500, and we bowled I think it's the 3rd highest game in Open Championships history. And then we had another top 10 in team all events with the year that we had. It was Ken and I and Rob Gottschall, Bill O'Neill, and Derek Ove. So we had a pretty. I've been very fortunate to get to compete with some unbelievable competitors throughout the years.
Now, you guys, again, solid group, and Ron Pollard and Rick Pollard and those guys involved as well. Mark Massey, somebody we've talked to, he's had 300 at the Open Championships, and the list really goes on and on. So it's just pretty phenomenal. But what is it going to take? You guys obviously have the experience and the talent, and how do you get those pieces to fall into place for you one time?
Yeah, we've had, my team personally, we've had a lot of interchangeable pieces over the last few years, and I know that most of the successful teams throughout the years have bowled together either locally or at nationals for several years before they finally break through. So certainly don't want to be changing out those pieces as much as we have, but we're trying to make sure that we have the right group of people in place, and hopefully we've solved that puzzle this year. As we're bringing RJ Pollard back, he was on that team that was the top 10 team in Reno, and Bill O'Neill is back with us this year, and then we picked up Charles Easton, a great young bowler out of Toledo. So we hope that this nucleus of the team is together for many years. Ken always talks about how he's going to retire when he's 50 years old. So we have 5 years left with Ken before he comes up on his supposed retirement. But I think that's all talk. As long as we're competitive, we're going to keep it going.
All right. Well, if there's anybody that's going to help show the way, it's definitely Steve Fehr. I believe we have him with us and ready to join the show and talk about some of his success and how he's going to help you guys reach the pinnacle as well. Steve, how are you today? Are you back? All right. Well, the downfall of live television sometimes. We've got some more time to talk with Jeff, and that's great as well. As an accomplished player yourself, certainly some big wins in your career. We mentioned that you bowled collegiately at Cincinnati. You bowled on the PBA Tour briefly, had some regional success, a couple big wins as well, such as the Bradley Open. That's a big one. Daniel, very familiar with that event in the Kentucky, Ohio area there. So you guys probably have bowled against each other quite a bit over the years. And I think some special success for you came at Western Bowl there in Cincinnati, longtime home of the Hoinke events. Picked up a couple wins there. That's where your dad's pro shop has been for decades now, going back to 86, I believe was the opening year, the Fehr Calhoun Bowlers Corral. Talk about that. Just this is a huge event that took place there. I imagine you spent a lot of time in that shop helping out and doing some things and at that bowling center, but to find success in front of the hometown crowd and on that stage had to be pretty special for you. A nice stepping stone as you work toward the next goals.
Yeah, it certainly was. And my dad opened the shop with Jack Calhoun in 86, right after he got off of tour. So he had the cartilage and ligament damage to his wrist, which forced him to retire early from the tour. And my mom and dad always talk about the plan was a 5-year plan anyway, because he went out in 1981, and they wanted to stop touring in 86 when I became a kindergartner. I don't know if that plan would have came to fruition, because he was bowling awful well when he did have the wrist injury, but it worked out really well that he was able to open up the shop, and it has been a very successful bowling pro shop for going on 35 years now. And I will always remember being able to get off of school, my grandpa picking me up and bringing my sister and I down to the bowling center, and we would be able to practice, and that's where Dad was working. And it's certainly special times, and we definitely grew up in that setting. as far as the wins go, I have been very fortunate to win several of the regular Hoinky titles. I did win the Hoinky Scratch Classic, it was called. That was the year after the Super Hoinky kind of disbanded. That was in 08 or 09, I believe. But that was a great thrill to be able to win in front of the hometown. I remember bowling John Nolan, former Masters champion, in the title match. I think he actually stayed at the house that week as well. So that was a special time to be able to take that down. But man, reliving all of the stories that I got to witness in that Super Classic, just to be able to see all of the greats take titles. You had Mike Newman winning, and Rudy Casamakis winning, and Mika, Roberto Silva. There were so many people that went on to bowl professionally that won that tournament. And then you have all of the high stakes matches, the action bowling at night. It was an incredible time to grow up, to be able to watch that action, and help me learn the way people compose themselves and carried themselves during crucial moments. And I'll never forget my dad winning in 2000, the Super Hoinky. So he was bowling Tommy Humphreys from New York, and he needed a double in the 10th, and they were both just Green Bay Packers. It was unbelievable. We were sitting in the stands, and we just jumped up and gave him a huge hug when he got that second one. It was an incredible moment again that we got to witness.
Right. Now, with that said, you have the lineage, of course, mom and dad Hall of Famers, your sister Stacy bowls as well.
Mm-hmm.
And just to live through some of those moments and the stories, and many of us have only heard the tales of Western Bowl and the other Mega Buck events, but you've chosen a different path in your career when it could have been bowling, and certainly that would have motivated many folks. Talk about that decision and just taking a different path when bowling could have been it for you as well.
Yeah. So I did after I actually took a break from college and got my card in 2002, and bowled the tour for 2 years, from the 02-03 season and 03-04 season. And at the end of the 03-04 season, that's when they went to the exempt tour. And I did bowl tour trials to try to get back out there before the following year, and didn't make it. And I thought I was ready, but I just wasn't. Those guys out there are so good. They have so much experience. And I was 21, 22, and I was pretty good at the time, but I wasn't ready. And it's turned out to be a blessing in disguise, because I was able to come back and work with my dad for a year, and then Ken Abner, who we've talked about already, he got me into a job interview with Sprint, and that started my corporate career in sales, and I've done very well in that, and I've been able to provide for the family. So it was really that's what I had all intentions of doing, is bowling for a living, but it really is a hard way to make an easy living, as they say.
Huh.
And those guys, week in and week out, are so good. It's hard to imagine unless you get to compete against them week in and week out, which I was fortunate enough to do for a couple of years. But I miss the guys, I miss the camaraderie. But I'm happy doing my day job and being able to moonlight on the weekends, and be able to have a little bit of fun on the weekends, a little bit of supplemental income throughout the years that way. So it's all worked out.
Jeff, I'll tell you, when I first came out of college back in 2009, I thought there was a clear divide between, guys who were on tour and guys who weren't. I thought it was a clear divide between the amateur players who don't go out there and the guys who are out there full time. And then I started bowling some stuff in our region. And I met guys like you, Dan Higgins, Brandon Novak, and I learned pretty quickly that there were guys like me who were amateurs who were pretty good. And then there were guys like you who were a step above that weren't out on tour full time. Not that you couldn't be, but just you chose not to take that path. But you were better than the weekend warriors, guys like myself or some of the people here in the city of Louisville. And bowling against you guys at places like the Hoinky or up at Western, anything up in the Ohio area, Kentucky Opens, the Bradley Open, which you've won, as we talked about, bowling against you guys has shown me that I needed to get better if I wanted to compete at just this level.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, Daniel, and I appreciate you lumping me in with the Dan Higgins and Brandon Novak. Those guys are incredible talents. There definitely is a clear divide, and there still is a clear divide. Bowling on tour those 2 years, even though I wasn't ready to compete at that level, I learned so much that I wouldn't change it, even though it wasn't a successful period in time for me.
Uh-huh.
It was successful in the fact that it taught me so many things to be able to prepare me for the future things that I was going to embark on. I'm a firm believer that you learn a lot more in the defeats than you do in the wins.
Uh-huh.
And there were a lot of defeats during those 2 years. Those experiences you've taken and learned from them, and that's what allowed me to compete at a higher level in those larger regional and really national type amateur tournaments that are just a step below that full-time PBA tour.
Well, and I want to ask a question about your 2 years on tour, and I don't want to put you on the spot, so I'm going to give you some time to think about this answer. The question is, you said that despite the fact it wasn't as successful as you might have liked it to be, you still learned a lot. I was going to ask you, what you learned out there. I'll give you a couple of seconds to think about that, but it's interesting that you give the 2-year number that you were out there, because when we were broadcasting the U.S. Open from Sun Valley Lanes in Nebraska back in February, a lot of guys that I had in the booth, whether it was Matt Ogle, Stu Williams, Osku, I had a couple conversations with Sean Rash outside the booth, and we kind of talked about guys that are new on tour. Matt himself has only been out there just under 2 years now full time, and a lot of the guys told me you can't go out on tour for 6 months or bowl one World Series or bowl one stretch of majors in a month and a half and decide based on how those outcomes are if you can make it on tour or not. The number all those guys gave me was you really got to plan 18 to 24 months of traveling, of expenses, of your life to see if you can make it out there or not. So the fact that they told me that in 2020 and you're telling me that you gave it a shot, 15 years ago, over 15 years ago for 2 years, that number is still, the bar. So in those 2 years, what did you learn that helped you become a better player at this level?
Yeah, and it's absolutely still relevant. I agree 100% with those guys, and I probably would have continued to bowl had the tour not gone to the exempt format. But the two biggest things that really elevated in my games were the mental aspect and then the versatility aspect. The guys that are at the top of the list year in and year out can play anywhere on the lane. They can play outside of 5. They can play 6th arrow. When I went on tour, I was more of a power player at the time. I wasn't a Robert Smith, but it definitely was on the higher end. And I really needed to work on that straighter game, and that's what really raised the bar for me after I came back, is continuing to work on that, and that's what's allowed me to be more successful since those tour days. Is being able to work on that straighter game while still incorporating the power into it. And I think that's now my A game. So I like being able to play a little bit straighter now. I'm almost 40, so I'm getting to that point where that angle entry angle from a little bit further right is more conducive to higher scores than being able to play fourth, fifth arrow.
How much, you said when you were younger, you were a power player. Now that you're a little bit older, as we all are from 15 years ago, you play the lanes a little straighter. How much of your father's game did you take and put into your game, or how much, did Steve kind of coach you or help you? How much of his game did he incorporate into yours, or are you two completely different players?
Yeah, well, because of the injuries that he had, the Steve Fehr that I remember was always more of a straighter finesse player. And I was more of a power player. Now, when he was before the injuries, he turned it up pretty good at the time. Now the technology was a little bit different. So comparing watching the old shows when they were throwing plastic or urethane, the back end movement wasn't like it is today. But it was more the mental aspect and really how he carried himself. That's the biggest thing. My parents have always told me, let your ball do the talking, carry yourself well, be classy, and that's something that I've always taken to heart. Try to be as good of a person as you can. I like to think that I am a good person, and my parents are just incredible people, and I've had such great role models where they're doing the right things. That's the biggest thing that I've been able to take from my mom and my dad is they're incredible people, and that how you carry yourself, and that mental aspect that just got put on steroids for getting your brains beat in for a couple of years out on the tour.
Well, for our viewers out there who may not be familiar with Steve, I'm going to throw up his winning shot from the 1994 USBC Masters. Needed just 8 pins in the 10th. He was on a double. Opponent had shot 207. He was maxed out at 244, and all he needed was 8. And that's about as straight as you get.
Yep. Well, he was throwing ropes. I know the lanes were extremely difficult. I don't think he averaged 210 for the week. It might have been right at 210. The scoring pace was really low, and that's the way he prefers it. He's a shot maker. His mental game is incredible, and that's the way that I grew up as well. I would much rather bowl on very difficult conditions than on the shootouts. So that's definitely something that I've taken from him. And man, I've seen this show probably 100 times, and it's incredible watching that win and the joy that it brings.
Now, by contrast, if you'll give me a hot second, we're going to pull up a little bit of you.
Oh boy.
So the viewers at home can see. All right. From the 2015 USBC Open Championships.
I hope this was later in the set. The start wasn't very good.
This is a good shot. I wouldn't pull up anything bad.
All right. Making me look good.
Yeah, you're a little bit further in than Dad, hooking it a little bit more.
Yep. And I'm a little bit straighter now, and that was post tour, so I had gotten that straighter game in there. Here's the great Ken Abner.
And bowling with guys like that from around your area, I know that the guys here in Louisville that I've grown up with have really pushed me to become a better player. Was it the same for you, bowling around guys like Ken Abner and everyone from the great state of Ohio?
Yeah, we have such a hotbed of great bowlers. You've got the Don Scudders of the world, and the Pollards, and my parents, and the rich history of Cincinnati bowling is just incredible. And everyone's always there to help if you want it. All you have to do is ask. Sometimes you get some feedback that you didn't ask for. But the bowling community community is tight knit, similar to Louisville, and it's just been incredible how much people are willing to give, and I try to do the same as well.
Now, Jeff, you mentioned you enjoy the challenging conditions and having to make the shots, and for your 23 years at the Open Championships, you're averaging just under 210. So you're just shy of being on the top 50 on the lifetime average list for bowlers with 20 years or more. And this event goes back to 1901. That's a pretty phenomenal a number and an accomplishment to be just outside that. Talk about your career at the OC and of course, different conditions every year. Sometimes a little bit higher scoring, sometimes like what we just saw in El Paso, a little bit more challenging. But almost 210 for 23 years. That's a ton of games and even just mentally a challenge as well.
Yeah, it is. And that's every year. So that's my major now. So the Open Championships is the one tournament every year that I am gearing up for. And there are practice sessions that happen before that. There's strategy sessions that happen. I take out 6 bowling balls every year. So you got your spare ball and 5 others. So you're trying to pick which 5 you're taking. And that's very important. But yeah, the 210, that's definitely something that I've been striving to get above that mark. I think I'm still behind my dad. I believe he's still at 213 or so in the lanes. When back in the 70s, when he first started, they were a little more difficult than they were for several years in the 90s. But yeah, it's the first 5 years that I bowled. If you look at that sheet, they weren't too good. So there were definitely some learning curves to happen there, and that was when I was still young and pretty raw. I started bowling when I was 15, so in high school, getting to take a few days off of school to go out and compete. But they weren't great years those first few, and again, it takes time when you're bowling on more difficult patterns that you're going to see at the Open Championships. But once you get there and you're able to learn a little bit more from the people that you're going with and see the transitions that happen on the lanes, they're not the same, but you see similar things that happen. You can draw on those past, what's happened in the past, and reflect upon that and bring those things forward to make yourself more successful. So yeah, that's 210 is that next hurdle that I'm trying to get over.
Well, you're at 209.8, and your dad is actually at 208.7.
Oh, did he dropped below me? He had a couple of tough years in there, so I finally got past him. But he has a few more games in from some lean years where they were really difficult.
Well, and anyone that's watched this podcast knows that when it comes to numbers and accomplishments and accolades, Matt is the eternal optimist. He talks about all the good, and I'm the one that kind of brings it back down. On that note, you mentioned your first 5 years. Your first 5 years, you didn't shoot over 1756. That was your highest set.
Yeah.
Since those 5 years, your lowest set has been 1856. So obviously some maturity, cultivating your skills, getting better. But like you said, you were 15 the first year out. What was it like at your first Open Championships in Salt Lake City in '96 at 15 years old, going to bowl in a convention center style setting like that?
It is shocking. And I think that was the first time I had ever been in a convention center setting. I hadn't ever witnessed that live in person. And you've seen it on TV, but it's so different. The ceilings are so high. The bowling lane is still 60 feet. You still have 10 pins that you're trying to knock over, but the atmosphere is just completely different. And I think I bowled okay in team event that first year. I might have shot 550 or 560. And I was nervous. I picked up with a guy locally named Len Gray. I think he's 86 or 87 now, and he's still bowling competitively. He's an incredible man, but I bowled with Pat Alexander from Fort Wayne, has many accolades, and I think Dennis Lane was on that team, a pro from the Tennessee area. I can't remember. I can't remember the fifth, but it was I got the opportunity to bowl with a solid group of guys at the time. But man, it's just that first time in that convention center setting is just incredible.
Well, now going in, of course, you have the Fehr name. So already, I imagine some pressure. You've seen the Eagles at home. Your mom's a champion at the women's championships as well. So did that add any pressure for you, knowing that you're kind of starting the next step, the next part of this family legacy? And didn't Dad prepare you, or can you be prepared for the Open Championships? You can hear about it, I think, quite a bit. But that first march down center aisle, there's really nothing like it, no matter how many people told you all about it.
Yeah, I would agree 100% with that. I mean, your parents try to prepare you as much as you can, but I still, to this day, get butterflies walking down that center aisle every year. And I hope that never goes away, because it's not nervousness anymore. It's just those good butterflies that are in your stomach. And there's good things that are going to happen. So I think once you lose those butterflies, that may be time to hang it up, because maybe you're just not enjoying it anymore. But I'm still definitely enjoying it, and those are good butterflies that are still happening.
When you do return to the OC each year, what is it that you most look forward to? What brings you back? Is it the camaraderie? Is it the eagle chase? Is it just the experience, the venue?
It's a little bit of everything. So we do always try to hit some new local places when we're there. So being able to visit in new places that are in the cities that we go to, even though we've had several years in Reno and Vegas, there's a lot of places in Reno and Vegas to go to and to experience. I always look forward to seeing the people at the Open Championships. So the employees that are there year in and year out, you get to know those people, and they get to know you, and you recognize them, and not just you all in the media, but the volunteers out on the lanes as well, that do it year in and year out. It makes it special. And then the camaraderie. So I don't get to see Bill O'Neill very often anymore. He's out doing his thing as one of the top few bowlers in the world. So getting to spend a few days with guys like him and Charles Easton, even though we're 4 hours away, I don't get to see him that often. Luckily, I do get to see Ken and RJ a fair amount, but we still don't get to compete with each other, but maybe a handful of times every year in the tournament setting. So maybe 5 to 10 times a year. So it's always a special experience going out and trying to put your best foot forward for those 9 games, because you just get one shot. There's no re-entries. You try to take as much information as you can, gather from the people that have gone. Maybe you all are posting a few snippets of people taking the lead, and you're trying to see where those people are playing, maybe get a read on what bowling balls they were using. But yeah, it's certainly a special time every year, and something that I've been teaching my kids, because they're both bowling as well after school.
Excellent.
So telling them how important it is, and going back and looking at the Eagles that my mom and dad have. I think my mom has 3 WIBC titles. So it's certainly some incredible history.
You've seen a lot. You've experienced a lot, of course, some close calls for you personally. Do you have a favorite moment from your Open Championships career, or even similar question? Do you have a favorite host city?
I'll hit the host city first. I know that there has been, it's not always positive talk about Reno. but I really love bowling at the stadium. And once you get to Reno, everything's right there for you. So all the hotels are there. You have as much food as you want there. There's gambling if you like that. You can walk right across the street for the bowling. I think it's a great setting, and I always do enjoy going to Reno. And we have had some really good moments there as well. As far as the most special moment, I would say it's watching my dad's teams win those back-to-back years. For me personally, competing, it goes back to the third place in doubles with Ken was the highlight there. Being able to see my name on the leaderboard, that's a special moment. We still have that picture hanging up in my dad's pro shop. So never forget that. That's my best OC moment. Hopefully to be subsumed this year or next with the title.
So correct me if I'm wrong. I'm doing my math here. You weren't alive for Steve's 78 or 80 Eagles, and in 82 you were just a baby.
Correct.
So we talked about the 94 Masters title, but in 2002 a record was set at the OC that still stands, and that was the most 300 games ever bowled at the event with 64. And your dad had a chance to get the 65th, what would have been the 65th one. And I would have asked him about this, but he's not here. Yeah. I'm going to ask you. Here's a photo of you guys after your dad had 298. So in the highest scoring or most honor scores in an OC event ever in Billings, how did he manage to get 8 on the field ball? Do you remember?
I remember it vividly, and I'm sure that he remembers it too. He left an 8-10.
Oh my!
So, thanks a lot for bringing that up. He definitely hit the pocket, but it was not going through the pins the right way on that shot. So yeah, he 8-10, but that was certainly a fun time. I think that was my highest all events that year. Maybe 2050 or so. That was Billings, right?
Yes, that was Billings.
Yeah.
Well, no, last show we had on Mike Nape, who's like the Fry Daddy. I could imagine what his reaction would have been on that final shot for sure.
You know, I'm sure that there were some bad words going through his head, but he's one that those words don't normally come out of his mouth. So I'm sure maybe behind closed doors he might have had a few choice words for 8-10, but yeah, that's a moment that I'll never forget as well. So yeah, vividly remember that one.
Well, now speaking of some kind words, we'll take a look at our chat here real quick. Adam Barta checked in earlier and said that you guys are an awesome family and nothing but class, as you just described. Of course, your dad's behavior in that moment that we can look back on and laugh right now. And while we're scrolling through the chat as well, a question from Collier. We just talked about your favorite OC memories, but you mentioned earlier being kind of a weekend warrior and getting out there every once in a while. Do you have a coolest win or memory in bowling in general?
Yeah, you know, that the Bradley that you had mentioned, Daniel, that was a really special win. I had been bowling that tournament since I was 15 as well. So I had 12 years under my belt at that tournament, and they're so difficult every year, and the lanes were so slick, and I miss Eastland lanes.
I do too.
I so miss. It's not the same for me because that surface was so tight, and you knew that when you go down there, if you averaged 205, it was going to be a really good year.
You were making money easily. You were making money.
And I had a run where I made the top 8, I think 4 years in a row. And the year that I finally took the title, I bowled Mark Massey in the top 4, I believe. And his Hall of Fame speech in the City Hall of Fame, he brought up a memory from that match. It was late in the match, and I was best 2 out of 3, and I had won the first game. And it was close in the second game, and he 5-7-10 late, and that allowed me to cruise in the title match. I bowled against Brian Wallachek in open Open champion. And we were tied 1-1, and the last game I struck out in the 10th for 257, and he had 256 out. So I shut him out by a pin. So I'll always remember that. I think I threw the last 6 or 7. That was really special. And then we'll never forget the run that I made in the 2001 Super Bowl high roller when I was 19 or 20 at the time, and finished second to Jason Williams. And we'll never forget being able to bowl for $100,000. That was an incredible experience. And I shot 229 and came up 7 pins short. So he had the mark in the 10th, and he left a 2-pin and converted it. So that was one that you'll never forget, and it was definitely the biggest monetary win that I took down but that was a second place finish. So
Well, I will certainly echo your sentiments about all of us who bowl the Bradley miss Eastland. No offense to the Carter family at Ken Bowl here in Louisville. They do a great job hosting the event. But Eastland, that lane surface just made that oil pattern that Jason Utchwall puts out 10 times tougher than what it probably should have been. Yep. And I will tell you, you won in 2009. That was the last year that I did not bowl the event. I've bowled the event every year since 2010. So maybe I should take a year off and put you back in the winner's circle.
I appreciate that. I don't know. These a lot of the tour guys are coming to the event now, and I think my window is closing to win that one. So it's definitely, the field has not that it wasn't strong in the past, but it has definitely elevated these past couple of years with the event coinciding with some of the tour stops, and which it's good for the tournament. But yeah, it's certainly a special win, and still have that trophy prominently displayed in the bar area.
I don't blame you one bit.
Yeah.
All right, well, Jeff, we're gonna get ready to wrap things up here. It's certainly been great hearing some stories, but before we go, we'll see if anybody has any final questions in the chat. Daniel, any final questions or thoughts for today? Of course, we're sorry, we're disappointed. We didn't get a chance to chat with Steve, but that's the technology for you.
Yeah, I wish I could have. If the social distancing wasn't in place, I would have been sitting right next to him, and it would have been a heck of a lot easier. So I tried to be IT support for him and couldn't get it going. So maybe we will get him back on with you guys soon when I can help them. And I think he would be a great interview for you all to talk about his past experiences, because he certainly has a heck of a lot more to talk about in regards to the OC than I do.
Well, certainly to recap some of his success over the years, we mentioned 1978 Classic Doubles, 1980 regular all events, and that earned him a chance to represent Team USA. Internationally, they went to Canada for what now is the Pan Am Bowling Adult Championships, picked up a couple gold medals there, silver medal as well. That had to be incredibly special. And then Jeff Fehr came along, and then that was followed by 1982, a regular team title, then the Masters title. We saw that just a few minutes ago. And then back-to-back wins in 06 and 07. And now it's a trivia question. When people ask the most time between first and most recent titles, first man to come to mind is Steve Fehr, 1978 and 2007. And a couple other guys in the window there, but that's phenomenal. And he still got it, too. He did miss a couple of years, I believe, here recently. And we were going to ask him about that, but came back in 2019 and had a solid performance in the team event, especially. He still got it. Jeff, you get to see him often. Are we going to see some more runs out of Steve and company?
I hope so. So he took a couple of years off, and he got asked by Mark Massey and his group, Pat Dombrowski, Rick McCormick, and Eric Abner, Ken's son. So when they asked, he said, well, absolutely. I've got a good group of guys to go out with. And I think he gave them 630 last year. And they made a run. I think they finished top 10. And he had a tough last game. I think he bowled 180, and he was not happy after that got done. So the fire is still there, and I believe that you will see a couple of more highlights out of him before all is said and done. He's going to be 66 in November, and so maybe on his 66th birthday, you'll see something special out of him this year. Hopefully.
There's a lot he's accomplished in his career. In 1993, he was at the time, the youngest player inducted into the USBC Hall of Fame. He won the Masters after being inducted, which was the first time that's ever happened. And then when your mom was put into the USBC Hall of Fame in 2006, only the third husband and wife duo to go in there. And he just keeps adding to it. And you mentioned being 66 right around the corner. And now I think the next thing is perhaps to add a doubles title, father and son. How does that sound to you?
That would be awesome. I am bowling with Ken, so I don't think that's in the cards for right now. But that would be incredible, and that's something that we talked about every year. I got to bowl doubles with him for a few years before we shook things up. But it was always special, and that's something that we always talked about. Is I'd love to get that first title with him in doubles and get him a fifth, sixth, seventh, whenever it was at the time. So yeah, we've won doubles in the city tournament before, so that was certainly special. So we've had that moment just on a little bit smaller stage. And it really is, when you can do it with family, it's just incredible.
Now, you guys are close knit, of course. I'll live in the general vicinity there. Spend a lot of time at the shop at Western Bowl, just spending time together. These last few weeks, having to be separated, how has that been? And have you guys kept in touch? Have there been long distance visits, drive-bys? What have you done to keep that family closeness going?
Yeah, it's been tough because we do see each other a lot, being so close. I mean, I'm 20 minutes from my parents, 10 minutes from my sister. We've definitely had a lot of FaceTime calls with the kids. We've had some drive-bys with, we had birthdays for my son. My birthday and my wife's birthday happened in April. My daughter's birthday is next week, so we've certainly had some social distancing encounters with the parents, but we want to make sure that we're doing the right things and keeping everyone healthy. But yeah, it's been tough on them, and my mom just retired as well, so she retired early April, so she certainly had plans to spend more time with the grandkids, and she hasn't been able to do that. So I know that she's chomping at the bit to be able to enjoy retirement to the fullest. But it has allowed my dad and mom to be able to play a little bit more golf than they normally would have during this time of year, since the pro shop has been closed. So they've gotten out and done that. So that's been nice for them. So yeah, we've been keeping in touch, but it's not the same.
Now, that said, what are you most looking forward to when things get back to normal?
Giving everybody a big hug, being able to touch people. So I don't know. I don't know how long it's going to be until things get back to normal, and I don't know if things ever will get back to the way things used to be. Handshakes maybe going by the wayside, and but yeah, it's certainly that being able to just do the day-to-day things that you're able to go hang out and play cards with your friends, things like that you haven't had the ability to do during these last 2 months. Looking forward to that.
Jeff, I do have one question to kind of wrap things up here. And it's kind of awkwardly placed in the interview, but you mentioned it way back at the beginning, and it's something that I'm very curious about each time we have a guest on who is someone who is still in their prime and is going to shoot for winning an eagle, chasing eagles as we call it. You mentioned that you all are bowling your team event towards the end of this year's run in the middle of November. Is that because you prefer to be closer towards the end of the tournament to see what number is on top of the leaderboard, or is that because that's where everybody's schedule fell?
So we don't like to bowl really early because we do like to gather as much information as we can. But we were scheduled to bowl Memorial Day weekend, which isn't at the very end typically. So what we looked at was really Bill O'Neill's schedule because the tour just abruptly got postponed in the middle of everything. So we said, it might be best to go as late as we possibly can in hopes that the tour has been able to complete everything that got postponed, and they're able to do the playoffs and the league and everything. So that's really why we went towards the end of the tournament, was for Bill's schedule, and hopefully it works out because he's our anchor bowler. He's the guy that's doing it for a living out of all five of us. So we're planning on him to take us to that promised land.
Okay, that's just an interesting part of the strategy. Some guys like to go early and post a big number. Some guys, like you mentioned, like to go late and see what needs to be beaten. So that's always a question I ask that intrigues me.
Yeah. I think for us, because we all have a good amount of experience, it doesn't really matter whether you're posting a score or you're shooting at a score. We're going out there and we're going to work our butts off together. The communication is paramount in those settings when you're looking at transition and what moves you all are making. So it's just, you're taking it one ball at a time and reading the lanes and figuring out where things shake out at the end. So whether that's posting a score or chasing a score, when you have the experience, it's not really looking at that scoreboard. So it just worked out for the schedules in this case.
Okay.
All right. Well, Jeff, we appreciate you coming on the show today. Some great stories. Of course, the Fehr family tradition and dedication to the sport. It will not be the Open Championships without seeing you guys come through. We're glad we were able to pick some dates for this year. We'll have a birthday card and an almost handshake for Steve when he gets out there. So we look forward to seeing all you guys. We hope everybody stays well and you guys get out there on the golf course together again very soon. For all those folks at home for joining us, thank you very much. We appreciate it. We'll be here with the Inside the OC podcast every Tuesday and Thursday, 11 p.m. Eastern. And then the rest of the week, we've got the PWBA podcast on Mondays and Wednesdays and the Sport of Bowling show on Fridays. And you can find all of that on Bowl TV. Again, we appreciate the support. Daniel, thank you for your hard work today as well. And folks, you know the drill. That is the news for now. See you on the lanes.